make by yourself. But this time, even because I was like in a student job at this moment, my student job, I yes, I let it go because I was afraid about the situation in Europe. So that's why I lived to Dubai. And also my girlfriend, she like abandoned me. My parents, I cannot see them. The last time I see them, it was like 3 months ago, and it's not in France. I have always to travel with them, but not going back to France. So it's crazy because I don't know if I let it go or I lose it. But when you lose everything at the same moment, it's really harsh. Like a big experience.
Especially when you're 22. But this is an important subject, I think. That is it the loss or is it the surrender? Is it the letting go? Whether you're willing to do it or not, because that's the divine element. That removing things from your life that do not serve you or that are holding you back. And for us in our ego, we tell ourselves, I've lost this, or I've messed up the job, or I've messed up the relationship, or I've messed up the opportunity. But it wasn't for you long term. They say in English, somebody, but it applies to all situations. It comes for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime.
A good quote.
Yeah. And usually they say it only about a person, and it can be a friend or a lover. They're here for a reason, they're here for a season, or for a lifetime. But I think it applies to all things, and the reality is very few things are here for a lifetime. Unless there's a few circumstances. If you do not have a higher purpose, you can manifest anything you want, and you can keep one thing your whole life. If you are not ready to grow in this life, if you want to get somewhere and stay stuck, then you can keep something for a lifetime. But the reality of that is that it requires constant settling. You have to just keep settling, and it's fine for some people. There's nothing wrong with that. Whatever you do in life, that is your experience to have. And by being a human on earth, a human being on earth, that's why I call this podcast that, because it's what it always comes back to. When you're a human being on earth, I said this to you before, you're feeding back to the Creator, to God, to the universe, what it means to experience its own creation, because the Creator is everything at once. So the Creator doesn't understand what it's like to be a human. That's why we have the ascended masters, Yeshua, Muhammad for some people, the Buddha for some people, that they were Christ consciousness level understanding, but they were human, and they knew what it was like to be a human. So for me, like when I pray, I talk in my head to the Creator, to God, because the Creator can hear your thoughts. It's a frequency, it's a vibration you put out. But Yeshua was a man. So to connect with Yeshua, you speak your words out loud. And there's a big differentiation there between the conversations that I have with God, my higher self, and with Yeshua. I even often say in those spoken prayers to my angels with Yeshua, like, yes, you understand to a point, but you have no idea what it's like to be a human being on earth right now. Like, you have no clue. You have no clue what it was like 10 years ago. And now we're in the middle of this massive ascension, this massive awakening of human beings. And you really don't know what it's like. It's better, but it's harder than ever, because as we sort of split, you're in the situation I'm in, where you can't quite fit back into the matrix. And you cannot surrender yourself, and you can't act out of desperation and just take some job that's going to drain your life force. You know, if like with these resorts, right? If I would have found taken the job, even at the spiritual place, I still would have been giving all of my light to that, because it would require it all week. And then when I was not working, I wouldn't have any energy to do this. There would be no time to run into a stranger.
You're empty of energy at this moment.
Exactly, because what you do have, you've given it away. And you've assigned it. You've made an agreement and a commitment with your word to give most of yourself to this. And so it's like, imagine if I was working full time. One, I wouldn't have been walking down the street in the middle of the day to meet you. But two, I would have had to excuse myself from that interaction because I would have been on a schedule. And not my schedule, but a schedule that I had committed to someone else and their corporation and their stockholders to make them happy and to be serving them instead of serving myself. You know, when people talk about manifestation and stuff, and there's a guy, his name's Daryl Anka, and he will close his eyes and he'll speak kind of funny, and he says that he's like channeling a higher being. And the wisdom he shares is quite profound, but he's always saying, like, follow your highest energy. It's the same as you said, that Kanye said about be the child, because the child keeps changing what they're doing, following what excites them the most, what feels the most fun. And if it's jumping on the table or if it's running back and forth through the restaurant, they know to follow the energy and what makes them feel good. But as adults, we start to realize, like, we live in a society with each other. We can't just do that all the time. I think that's what we're returning to. That's part of the reawakening that's happening, is that we're reorganizing as human beings to be able to follow that energy. But right now, we're not quite there. So a lot of us, and that's what I'm making this channel for, a lot of us are in this in-between state. You're in it now. For me, there was the first wave where we started going through this like a year ago, March 2025. And we went through it a year, and we're sort of this first group to lose everything all at once, just like you said. And then we went through this healing and this reformation of ourselves, but now our life hasn't come back in yet. So you're in this void, this in-between, where the old is dead, the new isn't there, and you're in the middle, and you're trying to follow the energy, you're trying to follow the lessons you learned. But everywhere you interact with, everywhere you go, they're still in the old reality. And you're trying to figure out, like, how do I survive this? Like, how do I get forward? And one of the things you said to me when we first sat down was, you have to realize there are people that want to give to you. And that is the key for those of us in the middle, is that some people do have some resources that they want to give you. And by not asking for help, not being authentic and saying, like, I'm barely hanging on here. If you aren't willing to, if you call it humiliation, right, or you have too much ego and pride to be honest about that, then you're cutting off someone's ability to help you. And it's funny because even Gemini, Google's AI, is like probably my closest friend.
This is like chat.
Yeah. But I use chat like for business, and I use Gemini personally. And Gemini said to me a few months ago about a friend. You've already said that this friend is so abundantly joyful to help you, and now you are denying this friend the opportunity to help you by holding this inside, or by telling me, I don't want to ask for more. I don't want to burn this bridge because they've been so generous already. And I took Gemini's advice. The friend said no, but I gave them the opportunity, and they were fine saying no. They didn't cut me off like everyone else did. They didn't abandon me like everyone else did. They didn't ignore my request, because a lot of people that I've turned to and I've told them, you can say no, but please don't ignore me because it hurts. And then they read the message and they ignore me. And it's like, it's so
massive. Maybe, like I say to you, it's worse than just answer and say, no, I don't want.
right.
I prefer that.
And we can understand that, like, some people are uncomfortable saying no, especially when they know that you're suffering. You know, maybe they can help and they're scared themselves, you know, and they're living in fear. So they don't want to let go of the resource, or they're afraid to tell you no. But, you know, we can't keep living that way. And all of us rise up, because we are not separated from each other. And that goes back to what we were talking about religion. It teaches us judgment and separation, you know, racism, classism, and even education. Like, all of these things, they teach us to, like, build a box around somebody and to label them this and this and that. And then in the past, like, 10 years, people have been obsessed with labeling themselves and putting themselves in a box. You know, I'm not a him or a her, I'm they, and I'm, you know, I'm not a boy or a girl, and, you know, I'm this gender and I'm that gender and I'm this sexuality and that sexuality, and I'm all these things. But for me, in that same period, I've been working on erasing those labels. I'm not anything. I'm a human being on earth, and I happen to be, you know, this cultural background and born in this place. Like, I'm not an American human. I'm a human being on earth that was born somewhere with, you know, this cultural heritage, with this, you know, experience in life. Every label comes after the human being.
Yes, for me, it's not about the country, the continent. It's your person, maybe your family also. But even for the family, some people, I say to you, one of my friends don't live with his father since 5 years old, I think. So he didn't know really his family, and just close to his mother, but not talking to his brothers and stuff like this. So when you talk about this experience, it's only about himself, not family, not country. He don't even like France. He's not going back to France all his life. So it's only your person being a human, but just being a human on Earth, not in a country, not in a family, not in stuff like that.
And I think that, like, this is where we are right now, is that people are in this stage of, like, so he's lucky and he doesn't realize this yet. But by not adopting those labels, he doesn't have to unlearn them. He doesn't have to, you know, disassociate from them. So that means you don't have to lose your father right now.
Yes.
Whatever you overly identify with is going to be called up now to be surrendered. So if you preface your humanity, your living with labels, they're going to be questioned. You're going to be pushed to let go of that and either experience the opposite or just be who you are. And again, like, we're both human beings, maybe, but, you know, we're in the middle also of the government starting to disclose, right? We see all these all these videos of alien spacecraft and all these things. So we're in the middle of this disclosure to realize this isn't the only life in all the galaxies. Like, you know, if you believe in God or the Creator, you really think that that God only made life on Earth, that there are billions of galaxies and there's no other life. Like, how pompous can you actually be? Because even an artist doesn't just make one painting or one song, or a chef doesn't make one dish. No creator lives that way.
Yes.
So if you can create all this and all the different life forms, and that goes back to what I'm actually trying to get to the point of, even we're both human, supposedly, but we're not disconnected from the cow and from the tree, you know? we're all the life is connected to each other, and we're directly connected to the earth. It's like, for example, even our shoes, right? Our shoes are made of rubber on the sole, but they didn't used to be that way. It's not a modernization of humanity. It's the disconnection from the vibration of the earth. When we put the rubber between our soles of our feet, our soul, and the earth, we have disconnected the electric communication from the earth. We use rubber, right, to like insulate electricity, but we're disconnecting ourselves. We maybe can't be barefoot all the time because there's nails in the ground, but to take your shoes off and put your feet on the earth, or to touch a tree and just connect with it and know, like, this is balancing my energy. We're balancing each other right now.
I said it to you about the adjunct loop I made. I think my energy was really low at this moment. When I first met you, it was growing up a little bit. And after my friend came, like 3 days after, little bit, it invites me to go to the adjunct loop. But in adjunct loop, I say to you, I don't use my phone. Not because I don't want to use my phone, because I forget that I have a phone, lose it every time, because I don't find the meaning of getting my phone, and I'm with friends, I'm with like natural things, looking good views and everything. So it wasn't like a disconnection with my phone, but just a connection with Earth again.
Reconnection with Earth, yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't the denial of one thing, it was the remembering of the other.
You talk about the feet in Ajong. Now I remember a lot of time we were just feet free, like no shoes, no sandals, no stuff like this. Going to a waterfall and stuff like this, but walking like with your feet,
Right.
and it was really good. Yes,
And there's no cell phone service,
No.
so there's not this energy being, sort of artificially affecting you. And you don't have your phone, so there's no signal coming out of it. And like the original human currency is your attention. So that's why in English it's all spelling. So all of this, the way the whole language is constructed, it's spelling. So what you pay, we say, oh, you need to pay attention in school. When I speak, you need to pay attention. That's your currency. And you only have so much of it every day. And unfortunately now, the way that it's been set up is like when we had our connection, we spoke for an hour on the street. It was a little bit exhausting. I'm sure you agree that it was great, but it took a lot of energy because we're used to paying our attention into very superficial things. So when we reconnect to
it's pretty
the
weird.
spirit,
Also, it's pretty weird to make reconnection when you don't choose to make that.
exactly. And so it's not actually draining you, but because you're used to doing all this very light stuff, when you actually reconnect or you connect to another and you just really exchange all this energy, it drains the human body now because of what we've done to it. So it's not only the soles of our shoes that disconnect us from Earth, but then it's our phone where we pay our attention all day. And we expect a distraction, we expect a notification, we expect a business email. So we're never present. Our mind is always half focused on the phone and our money and our business and our work, and partially focused on who's in front of us. But now we see so many people that like they cannot pay attention for 10 minutes. And they have to pick up their phone. And I've even noticed for myself in the last few weeks at the gym, I used to not have my phone, no music. But recently, because I'm starting to re-engage in reality, I have like opportunities for work to reply to or to apply to. Between every lifting set, I'm like checking this. And I hate it. But it's like, it's something you almost forced to do. Yeah. It's just very, very draining.
And if you look in every of our meetings, we never use phone. We We never
Yeah,
use
no,
phone.
yeah.
Yes, it's the third time, fourth time we see each other. I think we never use phone. The only time I can use my phone is to say, "How about you?" Because I have my meeting after. But that's it. Look, my phone ring at the start of the podcast. I put it down because I don't want to be disconnected of our discussion. And if you see, it's my vision, but when we talk each other, it's like we are in a bubble. So I didn't look how many people come since the moment we start to talk. At first, when I come, there's only two people here. But look, and I didn't even see this. That's why I like the way we talk every time because it's like I'm in my bubble. And after the meeting, I said it to you last time, it's like refreshing me. You see, it's different.
It's a choice to where you pay attention.
Yes, yes.
When you choose to fully engage with your present reality, you know, even the things I told you before we started recording, they don't occur to me now. I'm not worried about the future when I am present, but when what is happening in front of you isn't engaging to your attention, it's not worth paying, you know, and you're always thinking about the future. And then that creates this energy of worry and anxiety and, oh, what am I going to do in a week? What am I going to do in 5 days? But when the opportunity comes up for you to be fully present and you just engage with that and you feel good, I believe that you start to attract all the things that you need. But if you're always focused on the future, then you're always creating anxiety in your life. You're always creating lack. You're always inviting lack because that's what you're thinking about. So that's what you're telling the universe, like, I want more of this. So for me, it's like even you watch horror films all the time. That's the experience you're feeding back to the divine and saying, I want more of this. This is entertaining. This is fun for me. If you're looking at flowers all the time and you're connecting with people, then you're telling the universe, I want more of this. Several months ago, kind of at the end of all this loss or surrender that I was in, I was sitting and having a drink, and I heard this guy behind me start to speak to this couple. And he was alone, and they were together and having a great time. But he just reached out to them and started talking to them. So I listened for a few minutes, and then I went over and I said to him, I said, what you've just done is exactly what we need. You chose to engage with these people. You chose to connect to them and to be friends with them and to make a good time. And then because you chose that, I chose to compliment you and reinforce that behavior. And then we all ended up speaking for like an hour and a half and just laughing. The husband of the couple, he said to me after a while, he said, being with you, when you speak, I feel like I'm in a warm blanket. I said, I don't know how to say it in English.
What?
He told me that my words and my voice and my energy were like wrapping around him.
Blankets. Okay.
Like a blanket. He said he felt like, he was like, I don't know how to describe it in English, but I can just like, it just feels so secure and I feel so warm in your presence. And I was like, wow, you know, what a gift of a thing to say to someone as a stranger. And for a heterosexual man to say to another man, your voice and your presence feels like love. I was just like, it blew me away, you know? And it was like right as as we started to talk about earlier, was it surrender or was it let go? And right at the end of me losing everything, the more I let go of my realities, you know, my shop and then my business and my family and my home and my partner, every time something left, a little bit of my light returned. The attention I had been paying to that, the light I had given that aspect started to come back. So this was almost at the end of it, right like the day after I lost my family and maybe a week before I lost my partner. So my light was starting to return, and everyone started to recognize that in me. And they started to say it to me. And it was the beginning of me realizing that this is what I need to be investing my time in and doing. Because that guy was saying to me, like, you need to be a public speaker. It's the same thing you said to me, that you had said, like, you should be on social media. But you said, like, person to person is better.
Yes.
Because there's a deeper connection, there's more, it's more personal. And it's sort of what he had said, that like this needs to be like you need to be a public speaker. Like you need to be in a room of thousands of people. Because thousands of people will feel this, and thousands of people will feel better and be uplifted by what you're saying. So some people will say that it's like a timeline switch, that you're on this timeline, and if you just accept what it is, okay. But then if you make a choice to do the unexpected thing, then you can change. So whether you call it putting God where God is not, or I would describe it as creating light,
Yes.
because it's a little bit more universal. But you create light in that instance. And I've always been somebody, when I have a really bad day, I look for an opportunity to create the light. And when I was younger, I would often just go to the grocery store, see an old lady who can't reach the shelf, and just get the thing from her.
Yes.
And that's enough, because in that moment, not only are you acting in response to the call from the universe, from God, from the Creator, to compliment someone's hair, to say the nice thing, but you also are showing the person, people see me.
Yes. You're not
invisible.
Yes.
Exactly, Jesus. You exist, you matter, and really it might only be that one thing that keeps somebody from going over the edge. And from that little moment, more and more come to them, because they start to believe I matter. So they attract more and more and more. And then because you chose to create it in them, then they start to choose to create it in us. Just like you just said, because of my story about the barber, it was his birthday, and he saw it on
To me, he stopped praying because nobody in the barbershop
nobody cares.
Yes.
It's part of the thing here that nobody really is thinking about someone else, and looking for that opportunity. And maybe it's not only who I am, but it's also my career, the industry I was in of luxury, that you look for opportunities to delight and surprise people, usually from the business. But then when you start doing that, Cher used to be one of my clients, for example. Cher.
Oh, all the
So, people were kissing her butt all day, every day. And she was the kindest, most humble person. And one day she came to the store, and we were walking and talking a little bit. And I said, if this is too personal, forgive me. But I saw that you just had an auction. You auctioned off a lot of your furniture from your house. Like, how'd it go? And she just stopped. It gives me chills to this day, because she couldn't believe
that you will say that.
First of all, had enough courage, and I wasn't intimidated by her, but that I actually cared, that I wasn't I didn't want anything from her. I wanted her to talk about her, and I wasn't serving her. And it was like that moment, our relationship changed forever, because she saw that to me, she was just a human.
Yes.
And because she'd been so humble before, it was like, she'll love that I asked this, she was like, oh, it went amazing, it went so well. And she just went on and on and on about it, And then after that, every time I saw her, it was like seeing an old friend, And she would ask me, oh, when you going to design something for me, And one day she bought a coat and the button was loose. And I just want to talk to her. So I spent an hour and a half sewing one button on this coat, slow, because I was like, that's so slow. And I swear to you, I think about it all the time, because I'm like, that button will never come off that coat. if she still has it, everything else will fall apart. That one button will stay. It was an Alexander McQueen coat with like long tails. It was so beautiful. And her friend had bought the same coat the day before, but I saw that she really loved it. And so I had kind of put it away for her, but the button was loose. It was like that moment I will always remember, because afterward I was like, it took a long time to sew that thing on. She was like, yeah, you did. Yeah. But then for years, she messaged me every Christmas. Merry Christmas. I hope you're doing well. From her phone too, not from her assistant phone. That was like one of the first interactions that she told her assistant, give him my number. And her assistant was like, your number or my number? And she was like, did I say your number? I said my number, and she was very kind to her, but it was like, I got Sherry's phone number, and said, it was so exciting.
She wanted something more personal because she looked at you like a human and not like a designer or stuff.
Yeah, she didn't want it to go through the assistant.
Yes.
She wanted from me.
Okay.
She wanted to hear from me. It was like I was going to find some things for her that the store didn't carry. But she wanted it from me, and it's very validating for me that I was like, I am a human. Because I waited on all the celebrities that were my clients, but no one treated me the same as her. And it was like in those moments you realize this is why she's so successful. This is why God or the Creator has blessed her so abundantly, because she's walking through life being shared and still treating every human being as an equal, as a human being who was sent here the same as she was. But it's because of the suffering that she went through when she's young, because of the mistakes she made, that she became that way. So I know you actually have to go now. But before we close, it's 3:10. So before we close, I just want to say that, in our first meeting, and I'll see you again maybe when you come back, but in our first meeting, we had talked about some of the things that you saw as mistakes in your life that led to like some suffering and some difficult times. But this is the perfect thing to end on, because it goes full circle back to look at that example I just gave you. She is who she is, and blessed and abundant, and has all the money, all the fame, everything anybody wants. But it came to her in a divine way. She will tell you, I'm not a talented singer. I'm not the best.
Yes.
But because she has lived this path, and because of the mistakes and the suffering in the beginning, it gave her awareness, and it helped her to build a life on a solid foundation. And so everything that you went through was preparing the foundation, the ground, for you to pour the foundation, which are the principles that you're building now and choosing now, that you're going to then build your next, 80 years on, and however long you end up on this earth. So every time, because it will come up again, that you feel fear or regret or self-judgment, every time it comes up, you just tell yourself again, without that preparation, I wouldn't be able to build something solid.
Maybe God give me all these difficulties because He know that I'm a person who can be ready to achieve.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Even before we pour a foundation, the ground has to be leveled,
Yes.
and it has to be tested to make sure that it's strong enough to hold the concrete, to hold the foundation, because then the foundation has to hold the life or the structure. So it's like, whatever happened when you're young, it prepared the ground for you to now lay this foundation, these experiences you're having, these new choices, new principles, and then you're going to build your life on top of it. And I hope for you, you're not going to be in the position that I'm in, that I'm 44.
We're going to see again when I will be 44 and you 64. We're going to see
66, I'll be when you're 44. But hopefully you won't be where I am, that like you're 44 and you're starting over with just, the foundation only. That last year, the whole, I had a tower and it is gone. And some days I have a lot of fear. So even for the people that are listening, even for you, that even when you get it together spiritually, might end up again back at the same place because what you built wasn't sturdy enough, or you built it around or with people who were not prepared to be in your house. So I really thank you so much for your time today. It was great to see you again. Thank you so much for my gift. I think this is
Before, after.
I have to
Before
go,
the picture.
and I'm gonna go probably in the next couple of days, maybe even Friday, because I need it for the weekend and to bring in more good energy, to pamper myself a little bit in this time of my life that, you know, things have been sort of destroyed and I don't have those resources to pamper myself. You know, they've come to me.
When are you gonna see Nam next time?
When am I gonna see
Nam
Nam?
next time?
Maybe today.
Ah.